Don't you know, we're talking about a revolution. It sounds like a whisper. Don't you know, we're talking about a revolution. It sounds like a whisper. Poor people gonna rise up, get their share. Poor people gonna rise up and take what's theirs. And finally the tables are starting to turn. Talking about a revolution. Yes, finally the tables are starting to turn. Talking about a revolution. Oh no. Talking about a revolution. Oh no. Talking about a revolution.
No, if not. Well, okay, it'll be me. Sorry. It's been that kind of week, everybody, and it's just so wonderful and fantastic to see everybody here. We have a fantastic lineup of poets. And again, we're live streaming on Facebook, just FYI, and we are recording. But I think this event couldn't come at a more timely time. I feel like, you know, I've heard this in numerous spaces that it seems that we are at war at home against the ruling class, and we're also at war in Ukraine and other parts of the world. And I think this is going to be a marvelous event, and it is my sincere honor and pleasure. Oh, actually, no, Eric, thank you. Eric, land acknowledgement, sir.
Oh, yes. A land acknowledgement is offered to recognize the enduring relationship that exists between indigenous peoples and their traditional territories. It involves reflection on the long-standing history of the land, which brings each of us to this space. Although we are not meeting in person, it is still important to acknowledge that we in Chicago occupy unceded land that is part of the traditional homelands of the Council of the Three Fires, the Odawa, Ojibwe, and Potawatomi nations, who were forcibly removed from this land in the 19th century. Other tribes, including the Ho-Chunk, Menominee, Miami, Sauk, and Fox, also consider this region home, and other native people from diverse tribes, in part due to Chicago's role as a forced relocation destination in the 1950s, have called and continued to call Chicago home. These lands continue to carry the stories of these nations. Today, there are over 100,000 tribal members in the state of Illinois, and one of the largest urban American Indian communities in the United States resides in Chicago. Members of this community continue to contribute to the life of the city and celebrate their heritage, practice traditions, and care for the land and waterways. For millennia, the waterways of the Great Lakes have been critical resources for fishing, agriculture, and transport, which Native communities have continually cared for and worked to protect. Thank you.
Eric, thank you for that beautiful land acknowledgement. So I'd like to bring to the lineup an amazing poet who, to me, is a comrade brother, Tango St. Martin. Please, if you want to say a few words about yourself, that would be fantastic.
Hey, what's happening, everybody? My name is Tango, and man, I'm happy to be here in solidarity with you all. Yeah. I'm off to make a church bell out of a bank window. Kitchens meant more to the masses back in the day, and before that, we had no enemy. Somewhere in America, the prison bus is running on time. You're going to lose your job before a revolution hits. Somewhere I won't be home for breakfast. Everyone out here now knows my name, and I won't be turned against for at least 4 months. The cop in the picking line is a hardworking rookie. The sign in my hands getting more and more laughs. It says the picking line got cops in it. I can take care of those windows for you if you want, but someone else got to go inside your gas tank. It was clear to me that rich people had talked too much this year. Hey, why don't you go ahead and throw down that marble park bench everyone's looking up at, get the Romans out of your mind. Maybe a good night's sleep would have changed the last 20 years of my life. Playing the instruments like punching the wall, what would you have me do? replace the population, give brotherhood back to the winter, stop smoking cigarettes with the barely dead. You know, they listen in on the Sabbath. Police called the police on me. There was a white candlestick beneath my detention. I ruined the soup again, thought the judge, as he took off his pilgrim robe behind the white people's door and more. I didn't get lucky. I got what was coming to me, he toast. Find me back, the man said, of course, to himself. Washing windows with a will to live, tin can on his left shoulder, enjoying the bright, brand new light with all party goers, both supernatural and supernaturally down to earth. But what is this elevator traveling side to side? Like 1,000 bitter Polaroid pictures that you actually try to eat. All the furniture on this street nailed to the cement, cheap furniture, but we have commitment. This morning, an essay opens the conversation between enemies. Why? Because you control every grain of processed sugar between here and the poor person's border. Because in the tin can on my left shoulder, I can hear the engines of deindustrialization. You should get into painting. You know, tell lies more deeply. And this month, I'm rooting for the traitor, carting cement to my pillow. Here we will build. I'm high again, not talking much. Once you climb up the organ pipe to our apartment floor. I'm high again, calling everything church, singing along to a courtyard thanks to a horn player's holy pastime. I'm just putting a real jacket on it, talking about a real 5 years. Keep memories like these in the pocket next to the toll receipt. That man lost a wager with the God of good causes. Stood up for himself a little too late, maybe too early. I can still see 20 angles of his jaw zigzagging through the cold world of deindustrialization. There's an art to it. I'll tell my closest friends one day. You know, apparently too much of San Francisco was not there in the first place. This dream requires more condemned Africans, or put another way, state violence rises down, or still life is just getting warmed up, or army life is looking for a new church and ignored all other suggestions, or folktale writers have not made up their minds as to who is going to be their friends. This is the worst downtown yet, and I've borrowed a cigarette everywhere. I've taken many a walk to the back of a bus. They let on out the back of a storyteller's prison sentence, then on out the back of slave scars, but this is my comeback face. I left my watch on the public bathroom sink and took the toilet with me. Threw it at the first bus I saw, eating single mothers half alive. It flew through the bus line numbered and on out the front of the White House. Hopefully you find comfort downtown, but if not, we brought you enough cigarette filters to make a decent winter coat, a special species of handshake. Let's all know who's king and what's the lifespan of uniform cloth. This coffin needs to quit acting like those are birds singing. Rusty nails have no wings, have no voice other than that of a white world dying. Their book pages in the gas pump catch your ears nipped. The way three nooses is the rule, of the way potato sack masks go so well with radio codes, of the way condemned Africans fought their way back to the ocean, only to find waves made of 1920s burnt up piano parts, European backdoor deals, and red flowers for widows who spent all day in the sun mumbling in San Francisco. Red flowers, but what's the color of a doctor visit? There are book titles in the streets. Book titles like Hero, You Make a Better Zero, or Hey, Fur Coat Lady, the President is Dead, or Pay Me Back in Children, or They Hung Up Their Bodies in Their Own Museums, and other book titles pulled from a drum solo. Run here, hero. Lied to hiding place. All the bullets in 10 precincts know where to go. There's no heaven nor any other good idea in the sky. Politics means that people did it and people do it. Understand that when in San Francisco and other places that was never really there. I bet this ocean thinks it's an ocean, but it's not. It's a 6th and Mission Street. All know who's king. King of thin things. Like America, I'm proud to deserve to die. I'm going to eat my dinner extra slow tonight in this police state candy dispenser you all call a neighborhood. No set of manners goes unpunished. Never mind a murderer's insomnia or the tea kettle preparing everyone for police sirens. Much love, y'all.
Damn, Tango. I'm sorry. You know, I always touch about work. Yeah, hot damn, pure fire. Oh, geez, you're getting a lot of love in the chat. And, you know, I love your work. I give your books away regularly. Up next, another one of my favorite poets who just really inspires in the fight against fascism and for many of the isms that we have to battle against. And I'd like to welcome Michelle Sotoros. If you want to introduce yourself and pronounce your last name accurately, please. I totally appreciate that, sister.
Hey, y'all. Yeah, Sotoros. So you were pretty close. Pretty good. Yeah. Thank you for having me. I'm just going to jump right into it, I think. So this piece is called Maybe Black Panther Was Right. They say oppression is a pyramid built on a foundation of ignorance and harmless jokes and inaction. I am sitting in the movie theater watching Black Panther and these white kids won't shut up. I watch their mothers watch them run up the aisle and leave. I listen to white boys try to laugh the movie away as though they've already assumed they have that power. Like it's just another superhero movie, just another man in a suit, just another cool comic. I hope 50 fucking Shades of Grey was a grand old time for you, while your children's laughter was drowned by Kendrick's beat. You, white women with your white boys who fill up too much space, who take too much space that does not belong to you. I hope you know this movie eats at you for its right to exist. I hope you know the pyramid can't stand if the bottom crumbles and your ignorance is the bottom. Sometimes I look at Eric and think he is right. Maybe it's time for minorities to overthrow, assume power rightfully theirs. Sometimes I look at Black Panther and know he's right. Not the colonist, not the imperialist, will never sink to their level. I hope you know I am chipping away at you every day. Like Eric, I've been accused of loving the wreckage more than the structure. I've been accused at causing the destruction too. Thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful. I love that piece. I think this is the second time I hear you perform, and every time it just gets better and better. I just forgot to remind people, if you could, when you offer a comment, try to be as specific as possible to what you're talking about, so we're able to decipher the chat later. Up next, and I'm so glad to see Jerry Pendergast here with us. Welcome, brother.
Okay, hi. I'm going to be very provincial and do something very Chicago. A John Prine song revisited. Sam Stone lie prone, lie dead from shots with a needle, his widow working behind a counter. Their son, John Stone, comes home from school with next door neighbor Sue. They grab themselves a brew from the fridge. John plays some Country Joe McDonald for Sue. They kiss, cuddle. Dan Stone, their son, signs up. Blast and fall in Iraq, or was it Afghanistan? Wheels out to kitchen, places beer bottle by sink, opens refrigerator, eyes bottles, hesitates, closes door, rises from wheelchair, walks 10 steps leaning on a cane, drinks a glass of water, returns to chair. Hi, Dan, what's that? It's his wife, just come home. He's picking up a stuffed envelope from the floor. Those bastards say, I have to pay back my signing bonus.
Love it. Love Jerry's work. Up next, and I apologize in advance, please correct in my mispronunciation, Stravula Herisis. If you could please pronounce your name correctly and tell people a little bit about yourself.
It's Stavrula Harisis, and yeah, thank you so much for having me here. I actually wrote a poem this morning just for this, so it's I think it's a little rough, but I think it's a good start, and so you guys get to hear it first. It's called "In the Belly of the Beast." I stand on the land of the Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi nations. I am here because the founders of the United States of America invaded this continent, waged a war of genocide, and forced indigenous people from their homes through violence and terror and lies. I am the daughter of Greek immigrants. I am here because the United States 1947 Truman Doctrine helped crush a revolution in Greece and funded a military dictatorship that murdered and exiled thousands of leftists and left their society in shambles. I bought a banana for 24 cents today. I'm here because the United States government threatened to invade Colombia in 1928 if they did not stop the striking workers who picked bananas for the United Fruit Company. Colombia complied and murdered its own citizens in the name of US private profit and plunder. I drive my car to work every day. I am here because the United States military has waged decades of war in Iraq and Afghanistan, torturing and murdering millions of civilians with cluster bombs, white phosphorus, and drones, leaving blood and taking oil. I could go on forever. I am here because the United States of America is a brutal empire responsible for countless crimes against humanity from its inception to the present day. So no, I cannot stomach listening to Joe Biden condemn Vladimir Putin. My ears are attuned to the voice of the people. All power to the people who resist all empires. Thank you.
That's awesome. It sounds complete to me. Beautiful. And thank you for writing that unique work for us. All right, up next is my amazing comrade and poet brother, Lou Rosenbaum.
Thank you, sister. I appreciate that. It's really been hard for me to figure out what to read. I'm excuse me. I'm a member of LERNA, League of Revolutionaries for New America in Chicago, and part of the cultural work going on in this country. I tried to write something this morning as Darula did, and she did a remarkable job. I really thought that was wonderful. It's hard to follow something like that. It's hard to follow Jerry. It's hard to follow Tongo. It's hard to follow Michelle. So this is my poor representation. It's written a few years ago, and I think it reflects what the war is on the people of the United States today, because that's what we have to deal with. It's called Don't Shoot. 1999, Amadou Diallo, 23 years old, Ghanaian, immigrant in the Bronx, New York. His name rolls off the tongue like waves rising from the port of Conakry to crash at the foot of the Statue of Liberty. Shot 41 times by 4 white police officers. 2011, Kelly Thomas, 37 years old, homeless, Anglo, schizophrenic man, citrus-scented hallucinations taunt his fevered Fullerton, California street dreams, beaten to death by the police. 2014, Michael Brown, 19 years old, African-American, bound for college, hope gripped tight, a future denied, shot 6 times in Ferguson, Missouri. Come, see the blood running in the streets of my country. Does it matter if it's 41 shots or only 6 or merely beaten to death? Amadou Diallo's killers were judged not guilty. Kelly Thomas, verdict not guilty. Michael Brown's killers exonerated. Come see the blood that torrents down the streets of my poor country. Michael Brown, his student life opening before him. Kelly Thomas, living in the trap of his delusions. They achieved the equality of the bullet and nightstick. Both shed blood to wash the streets of their cities. Amadou's mother cried out, sobbing. She had the talk with her son. Surely Michael's mother had the talk. Even before Trayvon Martin, I had the talk with my grandson. And I'll pause here to say that he's currently in Cook County Jail. I had the talk with my grandson. Today I shiver as his brown-skinned hands brandish his toy rifle. Come see how the blood floods the streets of my rich country. These, our words, are our weapons. Our weapons draw all the poor together in what is a tapestry of common purpose that join us in a vision of a country where no one wants for a place to stay, for food to eat, for songs to sing, where the conjoined blood that today separately runs rivulets in the streets will bind us together to return laughter to our throats, peace to our hearts, justice to our hands. Thank you.
Damn, Lou, you're getting a lot of love in the chat.
Yeah.
And Adam says our words are our weapons, and he says he thinks it's from the Zapatistas. Beautifully done. And up next we have Sarah Menifee.
Oh boy. So I've got to follow all that and Lou. So this is beautiful. Well, I'm going to start with an older poem from this book, Human Star. Things are a little blurred, which is really, 20 years ago, they started a whole new bunch of wars in our country, and we're still involved one way or the other in war and selling weapons, and we You know, we want peace and we get war. We've never had bombs dropped on our head. We've had people. My father came home from World War II. You know, the horror of that, the horror of the Holocaust, and my mother tells me that they wanted to make new life, so they made me. And it's been nothing but war and the desire for peace and humanity's desire for peace, you know, ever since. And we have the war on the poor going on all around us in the streets. And this is the war that we see, you know, in our streets. So I've written a lot about that. So this is a poem that I wrote at the beginning, I believe, of the attack on Afghanistan by this country. It's called What is the Light? What is the light that we wake to this October 1st? Are we awake? Did something change? The machines are massing in the poorest of places, and terror's the word indeed. Get on with your money, it says, the blood that feeds it, an oily black. Don't wash a wound with blood, it says, on the side of a bus shelter signed Rooney. Late at night in the fog on these dead streets. Why so lonely all this life? Doesn't anyone but the poorest of poor appear to you, he asked. Of course they do, but these have always been my North Star, and I above the lost streets and deserts of war. And here he comes, the shining of his metal crutches, his pale face. To him belongs the night, all cold, long. Cold, cold our might. Where is the Supic pedal and its black light? So I'm going to read a couple of much more recent poems. I don't know if they really relate, but we do what we do. This is called Play. You know, we understand that there are going to be wars until we get justice and we get really economic justice too. So everyone is taken care of, and we take care of each other, and we have a system that does that, that's based on that. So this is called Play. Play is the future of the poor, their turn to sit down with little coffee cups and watch the heavenly bodies wherever they decide to go. Let the clever learn to spread the tar. And my last short poem, a little recent book. This is called The Chicken. It's for Khalif, my friend Khalif. And from a hearing about somebody's dreams, it's really, you know, it's really wonderful when somebody tells you their dream in a way that it lights up a little movie in your head. So this is one of those moments. The Chicken for Khalif. In the night, you broke into the house of shades and freed the poor, hopeless chicken trapped inside. It flew out the window you shattered. Then you ran and ran into the life you had saved from the slaughter of every innocence. Thank you. Oh.
Sarah, that was beautiful. I think that was probably one of the longest pieces I've heard from you. Beautifully done. Giving a lot of love in the chat. Lovely, Sarah, beautiful. And Eric says, I'd much rather tar the rich than eat them.
Yuck.
That was a reference to Yum Yum Eat the Rich. It was a gorgeous song. Up next, we have the honor of having Schizo, Trayvon Hobson, who is going to perform for us.
How you doing? Can you hear me?
Yeah, you sound great. Take it away, hermano.
Okay, so one piece, 2 parts, titled "Make Me Wanna Holler." Bases off the Marvin Gaye song and the Revolution's fight from the 70s to right now. Malcolm X probably turning in his grave if he knew we was all still slaves. Then you tell me to vote like I ain't gave up hope. Tell Barack Obama my city filled with dope, and doctors still don't have an answer for cancer. So fuck the Pledge of Allegiance and a national anthem. Bring back the Panthers. That's my solution. You really want to make a change, start a revolution. Don't worry about me smoking blunts, worry about pollution. Kids having babies and teenage prostitution. The whole family homeless and they sleeping in the van. So don't talk to me about a stimulus plan. For 15 grand, they think about killing a man. Walk across desert sand while holding on to Jesus' hand. My grandma tell me, calm down, God got a plan. I'm tired of being patient. I hope she understands. It's first part. Second part. Harriet Tubman probably turned in her grave if she knew we was all still slaves. Then you talk about freedom. Vaccines and I don't need them. Pedophile preacher, religious leader. In the house reading up on Eldridge Cleaver. Incense burning with cannabis sativa. The city on fire, but it's oil in the water. You looking at a man trying to raise 2 daughters. Hid in the sky as I talk to an OG. How to be a king among men is what he showed me. Fork in the road, I walk the path of the lonely. The government ain't built the prison strong enough to hold me. My Uncle Sam been locked up half his life. He's a heroin hype who just can't get off that pipe. And I swear he living a double life inside the walls. Made me wonder if he ever want to come home at all. And it make me want to holler. Thank you.
Woo! You got all kinds of love in the chat. Mercy from your sister Maribeth. Adam says, come on now.
Yeah.
Well, super well done. Powerful. I love the rhythm in that piece a lot. It's always wonderful to hear your work. I don't know if is Lou Tubin's here? I haven't seen him join us. If not, we're gonna move on to the next person. Hopefully Lou will come on in the next set. So up next, we have the honor and privilege of hearing Karen Harvey Turner. Take it away, Karen.
Wow. There I am. Okay. Hi, all. It is incredible, wondrous being here, and kind of daunting with all these fierce, powerful voices, but thank you. This is called Laughter as a Prophecy. You are so fierce, so strong, so sure of your methodologies, your clear path, your sharp and certain speech. I long for my words to be as impassioned and articulate. I dream of shouting storms and calling up earthquakes. I howl in my dreams, my poetry a battle cry, my tongue a flaming sword, breaking open factories and prisons, banks and boardrooms, rousing every somnambulist up with my ululations. And it is also glorious, so powerful. This battle, so bold, so true and possible, this dream. But I wake up whispering, my mouth full of ashes and despair. And it is not fear that charged the dream, or it is not fear of battle with overlords, the capitalist tower dwellers eating their own tails, trampling the world, smashing lives like broken playthings, giving a bad name to monsters. It is the waking life of conflict, negotiation, residual pain, trusting in humans. It's just the middle is always the hardest, in between the battles. In between the battles where we are one arrow pointed at a common foe, we discover differences of perspective, vocabulary, ideologies. We face again and again our indoctrination, the twisting of our minds, and even merely the paradox of our humanness. And the quarrels in front of us, which could be education, can become poison and overwhelm the possibility. And I doubt my power. I lose resolution, not in the fight, but in my worth in the fight. For I'm not a speech maker or a leader. I feed people. I create whimsy from detritus. I grow things. I write poetry about the sound of a dove taking wing, the curve of my husband's embrace, the grace of sunrise, about the perfect promiscuous miracle of a blackberry. What is my usefulness in a revolution? What medicines can I offer up? Maybe you too have had your moments of ashes and despair. I wander in my mind considering if I had only one poem, a few moments to change the trajectory of our times, what could I say? And would I speak to the dictator, to the statesman, the CEO, the general, the philanthropist? Are these the world builders? No, we are the world builders. We, the people of the world. And while it is in the nature of humans to seek power and control, to other one another, it is also in the nature of humans to create and to make community. The walls of our nations, our religions, our isms, these allegiances may be some of the structures we build with, but they are only the shadows of our stories, often the prisons that keep us separate. It is the acts of our making and connecting, the threads of our compassion that weave our community into the cloth of resistance that gathers us all. And in that gathering, we find again our resolution. In the conversations where we hold space for each other's pain and resilience, in the small miracles of blackberries, clean water, breaking bread, and sharing poetry, we realize our grace. And we dismantle that which keeps us broken and separate. So let us come together in these moments of grace. Let us negotiate our joy, our feast of enough. Let us pause to witness our children dancing, all of us dancing, singing, each in our way. The murmuration of our stories swirling together, our laughter, a prophecy. Thank you.
Karen, that was just phenomenal. I loved it. You're getting a lot of love in the chat. A lot of people got hit hard in a good way. For me, it was this notion of building a better world that just so beautiful, super well done. Oh, I apologize. What the heck? It's Saturday. I'm just ignorant. I can't multitask apparently. Okay, moving on. We have the amazing Ken Rabi, who is one of the funniest songwriters I think I have ever encountered, and I think you're really going to enjoy what he's performing for us today. Ken, are you ready, brother? Hold on, let me see where he's at. Oh, I'm not seeing him. He may have dropped temporarily. So, so it's not to slow down. Oh, wait. There he is.
He's here. He's here.
Let me ask him to.
He just doesn't believe he is. That's all.
Ken.
Seriously.
And if you're not speaking, I'm just gonna ask that you mute out if possible, because it messes up the recording just a touch.
Mute. And then you press video. No.
I see you, Ken. I see you, brother. Are you ready?
He doesn't realize that he's in. That's that's the problem. I'm trying to reach him now.
Okay, I'll tell you what, why don't we just put him on for the second set? So we're going to break now. And man, what a phenomenal performance by everybody collectively. So beautiful. And for now, we are going to have Alan say a few words, and then we're going to frame I'm going to frame the question for our poets. Alan, go ahead.
Thank you very much. And thank you to all the poets who've been reading. It's tremendous. We're going to change direction just slightly and talk about the very thing that I think that's brought us all here together today, and that's the situation in Ukraine. And to do that, I'm going to share the screen and do a quick slideshow, which I hope you can see. All right. I want to touch on a few points, just for a few minutes, a few points about this. I think by now we all have a general idea of what's going on over there. There's a terrible war, which is actually a tragedy, as all the other wars that aren't shown on television so much are also terrible tragedies. But
I
in
live
this
on with my brother's machine, so I should be.
in this case, we will just touch on a few points. We'll start with Russia, and I'm going to end up with the United States, and focus on a little known aspect of American policy in this war. What is Vladimir Putin's grievance? He objects to NATO expanding towards Russia's border, which you can see on the map. Putin wants NATO to reverse and back up, meaning it has to get out of the lands that used to be socialist. He specifically wants Ukraine to be a neutral buffer state that will never join NATO. And he wants NATO to guarantee in writing not to threaten Russian security. If you look at the map, what Putin is talking about are the countries that joined NATO after 1995. And those are the countries you see in blue, dark blue: Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, Czech Republic, Slovakia, Hungary, Slovenia, Romania, and Bulgaria. And those countries were former socialist states allied with the Soviet Union, and 3 of them were former Soviet republics, as is Ukraine. If we compare Russia's military with NATO, you can see that NATO is bigger than Russia. NATO has over 3 million troops. Russia has about 830,000. NATO has more tanks than Russia. NATO has more planes than Russia. And NATO is big, and it is an aggressive bloc. Every war that NATO has fought has been outside of its territory, such as in Yugoslavia and Libya and Iraq and Afghanistan and places like that. Come on, slideshow. Who is winning the military battle in Ukraine? It is not quite certain because the media has blurred objective information with propaganda, which means it makes it hard for people like us to sort of independently verify, the information that we're getting. So depending on, what channel you're watching, the Russians are winning or the Ukrainians are winning. It appears that the Russians, however, have kept the overall initiative, especially in the Donbass in eastern Ukraine. They have outmaneuvered Ukrainian forces with encirclement tactics and attacks across the country. Soon after the present war started, Ukraine and Russia began negotiations, first in Belarus and now in Turkey. In Turkey, the Ukrainians took a step in Russia's direction by saying they no longer want to join NATO. But the Bucha massacre, Bucha is a suburb of Kiev where a mass murder seems to have occurred. That controversy has forced Ukrainian President Zelensky to backtrack to the White House NATO position of Ukraine someday being in NATO. Meanwhile, there are the sanctions, and you can see in this graphic where these sanctions are happening and what it entails. And around those, there's been a lot of blustering. Federal Reserve Chairwoman Janet Yellen said last Wednesday, April 6th, that the Russian invasion of Ukraine will have enormous repercussions. In March, President Biden suggested removing Russia from the G20, the group of 20, but only if other members agreed. The full G20 leaders summit will be held in Indonesia in November. An editorial in a Chinese newspaper, Global Times, said on April 6th that conditions exist for dumping the US dollar's domination of world trade because of the crisis in Ukraine. It said the United States has once again distorted the rules of the international financial system into a weapon against its enemy. This kind of abuse of its dollar hegemony and brazen financial vandalism is bound to backfire. In short, the world will turn to other currencies. Also, in short, what we are really living through is not just a war, a military war in Ukraine, but there is an economic war. And this economic war is directly between the United States and Russia. The United States is pouring on one sanction after another against Russia, and it's debatable whether these sanctions will all work, and that's because the situation in the world is changing, where the United States is losing its domination, and countries like Russia have ways now of getting around them. If Russia is cut off from Europe, which is the largest market for natural gas, Russia has alternative markets it can go to, notably in Asia, China, India, places like that. However, the Europeans are going to have a difficult time finding alternate sources, and the United States, their part in this is that they are attempting to push Russia out of Europe and replace it with its own gas. The United States a few years ago became the world's leading producer of oil and natural gas. That means the United States now produces more oil and gas than Russia and Saudi Arabia. This brings us to Nord Stream 2, which we'll talk about at this point. Nord Stream 2 is the pipeline you see beginning in Russia, where Finland is, and it goes through the Baltic Sea directly to Germany. And we'll see the significance of that in a moment. The new German government of Chancellor Olaf Scholz did not want to cancel this pipeline, Nord Stream 2, between Russia and Germany. However, shortly after Russia invaded Ukraine in February, Scholz buckled under pressure from President Biden and suspended the project. Nord Stream 1 is still operating. If you see on the map here, you'll see all kinds of pipelines running from Russia, several of them through Ukraine itself, through Eastern Europe, making its way to Western Europe. This is how Russia supplies gas to Europe, to the European market. And what is the big deal about these pipelines? It's that the more countries the pipeline, as these pipelines pass through these countries charge transit fees. So Belarus gets a piece of the action, Poland, Czechoslovakia, all these other countries that the pipelines pass through get paid, for that service. And what the Russian strategy has been, especially with Nord Stream 2, is to bypass all these other countries and run a pipeline directly to its final market in the West. And a lot of countries don't like this at all. This is one of the things they don't like about Russia, what Russia is doing. More than a quarter of Germany's energy, gas, coal, and oil comes from Russia. Germany pays $220 million a day for the energy it gets from Russia. Nord Stream 2 is an $11 billion gas pipeline that would allow Germany to effectively double the amount of gas it imports from Russia. In 2017, Germany used a record 53 billion cubic meters of Russian gas, comprising about 40% of Germany's gas consumption. The big Russian energy firm Gazprom is the sole shareholder in Nord Stream 2. And of course, Gazprom is sanctioned. It financed half the cost, and 5 other Western countries, including Royal Dutch Shell, which is your BP station in the neighborhood, the other half. Nord Stream 2 is controversial because it bypasses countries such as Slovakia and Poland and others that you see on the map, leaving them without a chance to collect these lucrative gas transit fees. And one of the things about Ukraine itself is that basically it's full of these pipelines. It makes a lot of money just by having Russian gas pass through it on its way to Europe. And so this gives us a hint as to why it matters so much to both the Russians and to the West who really dominates in that country. With Russia able to bring gas directly to Germany, it would be much easier for Russia to shut off existing pipelines through Eastern Europe. In other words, leverage. American policy, however, insists on stopping new Russian export pipelines because they deny Ukraine billions of dollars in transit fees. And you can look at the close-up map of Ukraine on the left, and then the broader map of Europe. This pie chart shows where all the Russian oil exports go in the world. And if you look at the little yellow sliver down at the bottom of that circle, that is the United States. About 1%, I think, is what it says here. They get this. In green, Europe, 48%, and the rest of the world, lots of market share. American policy toward Russia is also hypocritical. The United States pressures European allies not to buy Russian oil due to the Ukraine crisis, but in late March, just last month, the Americans increased crude oil supplies from Russia by 43%, or 100,000 barrels per day, according to Russian Security Council Deputy Secretary Mikhail Popov on April 3rd, last Sunday. Critics point out that the United States pursues its own interests at the cost of European allies. This is the last slide. And this shows American imports of Russian oil per month. And it starts on the left in 1995, where it's almost nothing. And go further and further to the right, down through the years, right up to 2022, it was it was importing a peak of over 25 million barrels of oil from Russia a day, right at the start of this war. Okay, that's the end of the slideshow, and there's more. I don't have time to go further, but what this is leading up to is an aspect that's not really talked about much, and that is the role of the American oil companies in this conflict, and what is their aim. And it is, in short, to push Russia out of Europe. Europe is the biggest and best market for gas between the United States and Russia. And basically the United States wants to replace Russia there. The problem.
Hey, Aaron, this is beautiful, and I think it's amazing. I think we have to continue with the program because we are now at 1:56. And
Yes.
I think maybe just get unstacked to make comments, and also maybe continue the analysis in the comments. Okay, so that was lovely. Thank you so much. I don't think we're gonna have a whole lot of time, maybe 5 or 10 minutes of that to answer this question for our poets and maybe the poets who are next, which is very much tied into these issues that Alan is talking about. How do you see your art contributing to the cause of peace? And if you want to make comments on Alan's, I see people talking about food riots and the cost of wheat, and how the Soviet Union impacts that. Wait, what's appropriate to say? Russia? I mean, I get the two confused. Russia. So who wants to go ahead and start? Yolanda, you're totally visible, sister. You're fine. How do you think your art contributes to the cause of peace, or response to this fantastic PowerPoint that Alan put together? Thank you again, Alan. Bueller, anybody? No, go ahead, comrade.
You can always count on me to open my mouth to start things off, but it's only to start things off. I just want to say that I think the key thing here is that the United States has major interests in what's going on in Eastern Europe. And I don't mean you and me. I mean the leaders of our country have major interest in what's going on in Eastern and Central Europe. And this is not simply a game around independent countries fighting for their survival. This is a question in which there is a chess game going on. And the so-called independent countries are actually not so independent and have never been. We shouldn't really play that or believe that mythology. And we're part of a country which is attempting to control the world, which is attempting to control what's going on. So that's where I think that's one of the main takeaways from what Alan said. But to go one step further, that there is a war going on in our own country right now, a war going on against the American people. And it seems to me that the way we stop the wars from going on is to challenge our own war makers. And that's all I have to say. Oh, and just that we can raise, we can cite facts and figures as much as we want, but the way we approach it in terms of reaching the heart of the American people is through things like poetry and music. I'm done.
Beautifully said. And Alan just said, as ever, the capitalists profit from the bloodshed of war. So Lisa, you're up next.
Okay, so I mean, I'm hearing all you have to say, and I did realize just being away in Costa Rica studying with people from 46 different countries, which countries were allowing their people to talk freely about politics, because I did a lot of political discussions with them, and I had to say that I did notice that the cohort from China could talk all about our politics, but they were very reticent to talk anything about their politics. So are we fucked up? Absolutely we are. And it's up to us to fix that. But at least I felt that I had the freedom to say what was wrong, right, and not get disappeared. And that may not be as left as some would like it to be. The other thing is, as far as art is concerned, I work with youth, and like Lou said, we need to have that voice, right? We need to question the warmongers, but we also need to keep an environment where we can question the warmongers without being disappeared. I work with youth, and art to me is a way that I work with them to allow them to express. We have youth in this country right now that are at war in their own freaking neighborhoods, right? So I can think really big, but I can't fix really big unless I can turn to my community, right? And have them find their own greatness, their own voice. And sometimes, oftentimes, especially what I find in my Latinx community, right? We don't talk about things, right? We don't talk about Bruno. We just keep it in, right? Then we get anger. We have domestic violence through the roof in our culture. And we have so much love, but art has allowed some of my students to paint a mural, draw a picture, write a spoken word piece, write poetry, write music, listen to music that some people might call gangsta rap or whatever it is, and say, but then look at the words and say, what is this saying, right? We're talking about something that is broken. And I dig that this is the message. Not just consume it so that I buy their stuff, but consume it to understand what the message of some of our great songwriters that came out of, that devil music. So for me, art is a wonderful way, and it doesn't usually disappear, right? They'll burn a book, which breaks my heart, but they don't usually, burn Guernica. They don't burn things that are there artistically, because those who would like to shut us up don't have I believe, they don't understand that art has power, and yes, it does. So that's my piece.
Excellent, very good, thank you. Yolanda, you're on stack. You may have to unmute, Yolanda.
It's kind of hard for me because what I've been through. I wrote a poem about how I think in the House of Congress they can hear me, but thinking and in the spirit of the people that are speaking up in LRNA Facebook rally, I received an email, and it has to do about Russia, not about me as an artist. So if I can talk now. I received an email from Immigrant Solidarity Network, ISN, and it's an article by a Ukrainian that was raised in the Ukraine, and he now lives in the United States. And in the article, he blames the USA and NATO for the war. He's saying that between 2014 and 2022, they had the fascists had infiltrated the Ukrainian military and the Ukrainian police. 14,000 Russian-speaking Ukrainians were killed by them. And what this guy says is that, like was told right now, Russia does not want NATO to be used as a base. He doesn't want Ukraine to be used as a base by NATO to invade Russia. So what I would just like to say is that all this news that Zelensky won on a platform of peace because the American Western supported president that replaced the pro-Russian president in the Ukraine, he started a lot of austerity measures and tax raising, a lot of stuff that was harming the Ukrainian people. And so Zelensky went on a platform for peace, and that he's pretty much controlled under the threat of death to do what the Western powers are telling him to do and to say. So art to me right now is very crucial because we have to reach at the hearts and minds of the American people. We have to speak up, we have to write poetry, we have to sing and videos for for the American people to know that wars are for profits, for markets, and that this war has to end. That as far as the sanctions that are being imposed, then that I received an article from ISN, the United States is getting what they wanted, they're sanctifying Russia, they're creating more profits. And I didn't write a poem because I couldn't express what I just said about the Ukrainian article from the Ukrainian in a poem, and I just felt that if I talked about it, I would be more easier for me than writing a poem for this occasion. So that's all I wanted to say.
Oh, thank you, Lana. I always appreciate your analysis and surely on point. Stravula, you are up next.
Thanks. Yeah, I wanted to speak to the question of, how our poetry and art, promotes peace. And I maybe this is kind of obvious, but I think it's important to kind of emphasize the popular slogan of no justice, no peace. Because I think especially when you're in a time of war, the US tries to pose itself as, we're doing this for peace, and, they're really not. And so I think continuing to use our art as a way to, like Lou and others said, it speaks to people in a different way than some of the news articles. And one thing that we can kind of emphasize is this idea that, without justice, there can be no peace. Thank you.
That's wonderful. I'll put myself on stack next. And I think one of the things about poetry, and this is kind of subjective, but if you're an activist, you probably run down and tired. And for me, I read a lot of articles, but when I read poetry is so healing. And when I share poetry with my students, that's what they remember more so than, the analysis will inform them and educate them, but poetry and songs and art carry over and they linger, I think, in a way that transforms your thinking. And it's beautiful, I love reading a lot of the poetry of the comrades here and love watching the videos over and over again. And every time I watch the performance or read the poem, I get something new out of it. So I think that in that regard, poetry is a powerful force. Not just poetry, but in this case, poetry is really powerful in the kinds of message. And as Lisa was speaking, though, I was thinking about Victor Jara, who, if I remember right, had his hands cut off, but his songs remain. And I listen to Victor Jara on a weekly basis. We're going to get to hear a song by him performed by a comrade from California. But he to me, the revolutionary songs remain and continue to be transformative. So I really think that art plays a special place. But every talent that you got, Yolanda, whether it's your analysis or poetry or street art, whatever, any means we have, I think we're going to have to use the tools, right? So Sarah, you're up next, and then Adam. Sarah?
Oh yeah, Jack Hirschman, our great late comrade Jack, used to say, everyone's a poet, and he really meant that literally. And that, that's been my experience. And I've done just limited kind of, not workshopping, but just facilitating writing groups with parolees and with a women's, shelter drop-in, and with young homeless kids. And they all just want to write poetry, and really quality stuff, really beautiful, just talking about what's real. And I really believe that part of peace and part of a transformed social system is bringing that out in everybody that wants it, and that the vision of what we want, as human beings and as a society, just naturally emerges that way. And that's been my experience. And I think there's a reason why the powers that be make it make us believe that it's just certain people that can do that or that are good at that, and that belongs to, and that's kind of a class thing. So I think that, that any form of art, music, poetry, I think a lot of the poetry now is expressing itself in the youth through hip hop and just a very international style that is very revolutionary. But I just think that the poets need to be a force to really democratize culture, and I think that's already happening. I think it's a beautiful thing, and it really is a future that everybody is going to have anyway, express what we really are through some form of culture, and that's all. I mean, I could ramble on.
Thank you, Sarah. So there's just a few comments before Adam speaks. Jim says that poetry and music is the window to our souls, much needed now as a moving force during these revolutionary times. Lisa says peace begins with giving voice to the voiceless in whichever way they define their voice. And Jerry has really a beautiful homage to Victor Jara, saying he kept singing after his fingers were cut off, but he'd already taught so many to play. So many had learned his songs. The motherfuckers were too late. His songs spread all over the world, and he lives on. Very good, beautiful. Hey, I couldn't think of a better person to follow up than Adam. Adam, you're up.
Man, yeah, wow, thank you. That comment, Jerry, about Victor Jara really is just so striking and so profound. Yeah, no, I raised my hand just to contribute more that I think is probably, in some level obvious to everyone, but it's a really good conversation. And I really appreciate the cultural workers of people like Lisa who spoke and are working with youth, and Sarah, you've put in your years and decades of working with folks in all sorts of contexts in the movement to do this work that you're talking about of creating community, creating dialogue, creating a sense of a shared identity together through art and poetry and music as a kind of ritual. I was really struck by Karen's poem and some line in your poem, Karen, about just the conflicts that those of us who are here trying to change the world and organize with other people and bring poor and working class people together around our common struggles and our common visions. I think all of us have an awareness that this is not easy, this business of revolution, but I really am just more convinced than ever that cultural work is a key to us finding our rhythm together. I mean, it's a movement, right? And so there's literally, like, if we're gonna be a movement, we have to move together. We have to learn how to do like this kind of dance together, and poetry is so important from a political perspective in particular, because we have to take turns listening to each other and speaking to each other, and not just like as academics studying something and like kind of trying to sound smart and sound like each other, and the smartest person in the room I want to sound like them, but like, no, I want to sound like me, and I want to hear you sound like you, not like me. And so we're appreciating each other's authentic different voices, and we can challenge each other to not get stuck in kind of like the toxic patterns of behavior and conflict that lead to groups falling apart, and the movement, we not trusting each other, and all of this. Dialogue is such a key part of it, that I just wanted to emphasize. But I also really appreciate a thing like this where we're doing both poetry and having like an open dialogue like this. I think the poetry helps us speak more freely during this part, right? And then we go back to the poetry and we feel inspired and like reminded of what we all share in common, and again forge that community and shared identity.
Totally, that was beautifully said. And I think too, poetry has such a lovely energy to it that no matter how downtrodden you're like, yes, poetry and music. Wonderful. Let's see. Up next, I believe is Lou, and after Lou, Carlos. Lou, go ahead.
I just wanted to say, well, I guess before I say what I want to say, I just really appreciate what Adam just said, and especially knowing that he just came from South by Southwest, where he and his band were performing, and I heard him talk the other day about how the music that he performs was really received well by especially the people who were the servers in the high-end places that he performed. That's where the real reception was to the music. It reinforces how important to me getting the messages out to people who can't necessarily afford it. So I just wanted to say that to start with. But the only other thing I wanted to say is that the ruling class fears art. They really do. They fear art in all its forms. And this is, what really struck me was listening to Lisa talk a little bit ago. And what that flashed in my mind was the Siqueiros mural in Los Angeles that was commissioned by the merchants of Olvera Street. And once Siqueiros painted it, the message was so devastating to American imperialism that the Mexican merchants of Olvera Street painted it over. And it stayed painted over for 40 years, maybe more than that, before it was restored just a few years ago. In New York, Diego Rivera painted a mural in Rockefeller Center. And when Rockefeller saw what it was, he demolished it, totally demolished it. Why? Because it had a potential to inflame people's hearts, to get people thinking, and not only thinking, but acting about the conditions in which they exist. So we have a very important role to play, and we shouldn't ever think otherwise. Thank you.
Thank you, Luke. Carlos, you have 2 minutes and you're the last person to speak, and we'll go into our next set.
You're not gonna read?
It's late. No, not the poetry, just the.
My comment, I think that poetry, it heals the soul, but it also liberates us into a consciousness when you really read. We could think about the past, but we also have to think about the future. We have to talk about healing the soul and educating people. In a country which is the richest country in the world, and we have a vast number of people can't even read and write. And I don't mean the national, just oppressed people, but many people in the United States. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlos. That was beautifully said. Thank you. So I have the honor and privilege of introducing my co-host, Eric Allen Yankee, who is a phenomenal poet, and he's going to be doing the thing with the second set. I can't even think of the word, moderating the second set. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the second half, I guess. For our first performer of the second half, we have Ken Robbie. Are you set up, Ken?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Oh, good. I am very pleased you can hear me. I had a hard time getting hooked up here. Oh, there I am. Okay, good. All right. I'm actually going to sing you songs about voting, which is our our method, I guess, of changing things. Maybe someday we'll have some group that we can actually vote for that will change things. At the moment, who can say? Certainly not the two parties that are running things now. They're not headed in quite the right direction. I think we can agree on that. In any case, here's a couple. One's fast, one's slow. Election day, months away. It's your chance to have your say. So come out and force. Let them hear your voice. Be a voter. Every few years you start getting urged. And now you gotta find out if your name has been purged. But if you don't choose, you automatically lose. So we're a voter. Tuesday morning, polls open at 6. I was gonna vote before work, but there's a snow sleep mix. Let someone else. I wanna sleep late. Someone who cares, or someone who hates. Okay, I'm up. I wish I was not, but if I don't vote, I throw away my shot. Feels good, not strange, to push for change. So if you care one iota, come out in force. Let them hear your voice and be a voter. Ah, yes, be a voter. Now, here's a song called Hot Vote, and it's taken from Duke Ellington's Hot Note. Hit her with a hot note. Here it goes. Oh, hit them with a hot note, vote them out. And when they're gone, we're gonna leap around and shout. It's all about to happen. Don't let them keep you napping. Hit them with a hot note, vote them out. Make sure your vote is counted any way you can. And if you think it might get lost in the mail, you gotta go down, drop it in by hand. Yeah, hit them with your hot vote, vote them out. And when they're gone, we're gonna sing and dance and shout. Yeah, it's all about to happen. Don't let them catch you napping. No, hit them with your hot vote. Oh, vote them out. Hit them with the hot vote and vote them out. That's all, folks.
Oh, thank you, Ken. Right now it seems everybody's really attacking voting. The ruling class is going after it here, so it's important to remind ourselves that we need to fight for it. So even if we think it doesn't change things, that we have to make it so it does change things. Next up, we have Lewis Tubbins. Do we have you with us, Lewis?
Yeah, I'm here. Just give me 1 second really quickly. I'm actually just finishing up parking right now, so just right on time. How's everybody doing? Hope y'all are doing great and wonderful. All right. So this poem I originally wrote about the Israeli and Palestinian conflict. And it's dedicated to the most unfortunate victims of war, the children. Playing hopscotch over landmines, she can still find the sun through smoke-filled skies left behind by rockets. She uses rocks from shattered school buildings as toys, tossing them like midnight bombs while her dad watches, remembering mom. Behind piles of rubble she hides, playing games with friends. Her smile like her energy does not end. Shh. They're bombing again. Bombing. Her old school, her old playground, she can't stand the sound. fill in the Holy Land, of thousands of years old, with holes she covers her ears. This innocent soul, exposed, joy now converted to fear, clenching her father's body tighter with every blast. Her eyes stay shut from the exploding sand. Her father shielding her vision from the bloody limbs that are blanketing the earth like a world leader's sins. And then silence. The shelling is over. Her father releases his grip, but she does not. Hysterical screams are heard in the distance like banshees being slaughtered. Her father takes one look at his city, turns to ruin, then looks back at her. And huge dark eyes remind him that no military in the world has ever destroyed or will destroy the spirit of the future. Thank you. Thank you. And thank y'all for having me. Appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, Lewis. That's really powerful piece. And, we're glad to have you with us. Next up, I'll reintroduce my co-host, who is also a poet, Jesus Estrada, who is a wonderful poet and owner of a new publishing company, Barrio Blues Press. So here we go.
Thank you, hermano. Lou, I know we're not supposed to respond right now, but I love your work. I still carry that short collection of yours in my backpack. I wanted to talk about a different war, and some people have alluded to it, and that's a war along the border. And as you know, the United States is an imperialist hypocrite. And one of the things that is so, to me, disgusting is that they'll accept refugees from Ukraine, but not refugees from Central America and Mexico. So this is called nopales. Don't eat with steel fork, eat with fingers, timeless maize, patted out with each heartbeat by your madre and abuelas, your soul weaved in saliva, one trozo at a time. Don't drink Coke, drink yerba buena y café con leche, café ground in el metate by your tíos and padrinos, your tongue soaked in justice, one inhalation at a time. Don't dream of tomorrow with gold monedas and dollars as your path. Dream of el ranchitos y los aztecas. Dream of running through dusty calles filled with loud aspirations, your eyes looking forward hacia a better world. Don't cry tristeza over los fascistas y puta migra when they come breaking through your front door like perros in heat, tearing up the kitchen, crushing your jarros with agua dulce, using the bolillos to crack your teeth, wrapping your tongue around your neck in an ageless noose, punching your eyes into a black blur, wrenching your heart out with their laws as your children are ripped away in the miscarriage of humanity. Don't cry tristeza over los fascistas y puta migra. You are the nopal dream they fear so much. Let them tremble. All right, so that's one. The other poem, it's actually a whip. It's a work in progress. And I wrote it a couple of weeks ago. And I dedicate it to the people of Ukraine and Russia who don't stand to profit from this war. And I really should dedicate it to the people of the United States because they're not going to profit either. This poem is called B. Heroes are born from dirt and struggle. They bleed red through interconnected veins, crying for peace, working toward a clean earth, demanding jobs, pleading for real healthcare. Heroes do not think invading small countries is a genius idea. Heroes don't profit off the death and misery of others. Heroes don't make a spectacle of hatred. Heroes fight for all. Heroes fight for you. Heroes will midwife a better world. Be a hero. That was it. Thank you. Thank you for listening.
Oh, thank you, Jesus. Just having a moment of technical issue here. But next up on our list here, we have the great poet and publisher, owner of Vagabond Books, Mark Lippman.
Hey,
You
thank
with
you,
us,
Eric.
Mark?
Wow, I am just so overwhelmed by all the power here today. It's like I don't even have to speak because we're all in a room full of just powerful minds here. So we all get it. There's no having to explain anything. The only thing I'm really going to add, though, is that it's like I'm so happy that so many people are starting to wake up to becoming anti-war. I'm just curious where they've been for the last 20, 30 years. So it's like those of us who are here understand that it's a very complex issue that boils down to one simple fact. Whether it's the American oligarchs or the Russian capitalists, it's always those who are rich and powerful against those who are poor. No matter where you go, it's a war against the poor. And in times of war and homelessness, truth is always the first victim. As the casualties pile up in our collective consciousness, memory has the lifespan of a goldfish, forgetting itself with each subsequent news cycle, spun around half lies and whole falsehoods. The politician is never too far away to take credit for what he has never done, to pat himself on the back, to do what he was forced to do. Selling cheap words and platitudes to the suffering masses who must make do with unkept promises and a shrinking waistline, while stretching bread lines lick an empty shelf. Compassion dies behind tall walls that separate the eyes from the heart, as those with more shorten the table to stuff their faces with the blood of the poor. For hunger is a crime in times of war and homelessness, and the refugee must take the blame for the shock and awe, for only the guilty would place their children beneath our bombs bursting in air and the rocket's red glare that is there to entertain us, to distract us from our own humanity, for having the audacity to wash up upon our shores like some dead fish with the tides. For in times of war and homelessness, with God on our side and the proper application of collective punishment, we may be blessed to even forget that they ever existed at all. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Mark. Earlier, I forgot what I was going to say here, but yeah, it's just a wonderful piece. Kathy, do we have Kathy with us still? Are you still here? I don't see Kathy. No? Okay. Give me just a second here. Looks like our next performer then is going to be Alan Harris, who we heard from before with his presentation. Alan, are you ready to go?
Yes, just a moment. Thank you. I'm happy to be part of this roster here. I'm not really a poet. I don't think I am, but I'm really just a boring newspaper man. But I like a good song. I like a good book. I like a good movie, and I like a good poem. And this one is a favorite of mine. It's very famous, and it's probably already well known to all of you as well. It's by William Butler Yeats, and it's called The Second Coming, which he wrote just after the First World War, and also during the Spanish flu pandemic and during the Irish rebellion against Britain. And I can't help but feel if Yeats were here today, seeing what is going on, that he would wonder if he's having deja vu or what. But here is the Second Coming, which I will do my best to represent. Turning and turning in the widening gyre, the falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart. The center cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. The blood-dimmed tide is loosed, and everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drowned. The best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity. Surely some revelation is at hand. Surely the second coming is at hand. The second coming. Hardly are those words out when a vast image out of Spiritus Mundi troubles my sight. Somewhere in the sands of the desert, a shape with lion body and the head of a man, a gaze blank and pitiless as the sun, is moving its slow thighs, while all about it reel shadows of the indignant desert birds. The darkness drops again, but now I know that 20 centuries of stony sleep were vexed to nightmare by a rocking cradle. And what rough beast, its hour come round at last, slouches toward Bethlehem to be born. The Second Coming.
Well, Alan, I'm gonna start calling you Alan Butler Yates from now on. If you, thank you so much. Up next on our list of performers, we have Linda Goyne. Linda, you're with us, right?
I am now, I hope.
Yeah, there you are.
Okay, great. All right. Lou and I have just figured out that we've known each other for about 4 years. In that time, I've written a lot of poetry, and it's all works in progress because I never finish anything. I write a lot. I had to laugh at what Adam said because I was going for my PhD in social history, and I was denied by 10 universities. And you talk about political institutions, and that's a university, because I started reading between the lines during my second year of my master's degree in social history. And out of that, I grew to love poetry more than thesis. And I just keep writing. And I try to draw the line between the past and now. And I'm so honored to be here today because I've written down 21st lines of poems that I'm going to be working on for the next couple of weeks. And it's a pleasure to meet you all. Thank you, Lou, for inviting me. I'm going to put my bifocals on. I learned a new word yesterday. Viscid, and it's not visceral, and it stuck with me. So I had some viscid thoughts. What they never said about that family from the 1800s that grew 12 children in Virginia's southeast corner is that just four of those children were female. All 8 males died in their 20s, 30s, but the girls lived long lives. They didn't say the boys went to war. We're still searching for the paperwork for that farm. The parents lost the farm when they lost their sons, all within 4 years. My Welsh ancestors wrote in stone that land was always worth more than family. What they meant was that land lasts longer, but the value is negligible. John Robert Muse, age 20, reportedly died on the 8th of August, 1862, in that cruel battle of Cedar Run. But that battle wasn't fought until the following day. What they never tell you is that records are faulty, but land is forever. A photo of that battleground today appears serene. Viscid was the first recorded as a word in English in 1630. It's an unpleasant stickiness, like mistletoe, like slime. Do you ever use the word viscid in a sentence? I don't, not usually. What they'll never tell you is how words age. Family is a viscid yet viable layer of blood and anger that attaches itself to land. They'll also never tell you that nothing lasts forever. Well, maybe they do, but the glue that cements that sentiment is shoddy stuff. And now I'm addicted to seltzer water, carbonated and salty, because every time I read about someone who dies in a war, I cry. And the salt is wearing channels in my cheeks, like the way limestone chews at monuments until they become land again. Roughly 30 people who tried to evacuate Ukraine were killed when a Russian missile hit, allegedly. The date is nebulous. The press relies on word alone that photos exist, and they're not serene, because time is friends with blood and fire. Time is not viscid. Land is the glue. And I don't know how to get back.
Yeah. Thank you, Linda. I guess I am the next poet on the list. I don't see myself spotlighted, though.
Yeah, I'm having trouble here too.
We'll get you.
There we go.
Don't worry about it. I got you, or Alan's got you.
Yeah. I remembered something I was going to say in response to Mark. He brought up that a lot of people are suddenly coming out as anti-war, and where have they been? A lot of times I think people here don't realize they have the right to be anti-war. So much in America, it's like, if you're not a patriot who's all for the bombing and everything, then you're gonna get looked down upon by a whole lot of people. And that's what our politicians try to convince us of, is we got to be for whatever ridiculous thing they want to drag us into. So it's our job as artists, I think, is to remind people that they can feel safe to be anti-war, and they can fight for peace. This poem is called "The War at Home." Just recently wrote it for this event, so here we go. In the United States, we spread open and birth war for breakfast, and hold it swaddled in our arms every single hour of every day. Our rulers cannot survive if they cannot breathe in the fog of manufactured war. We are twisted metal and scorched earth. Without our wars, we are nothing. In the United States, we keep the war going without stopping to breathe or rebuild the bodies of our victims or the soul of our people. War is our fuel as we dance in the flowing river of oil for blood and blood for oil. War is our eternal dance, and the ruling class twirl us around and keep us dancing all the way to the grave. So, yeah, I know I'm not the most uplifting poet sometimes. I like to serve as a reminder that this is a pretty crazy place we live in, So we have up next for for our next performer. Is Vince Romero with us?
I don't think he is, Eric.
He's not? Okay. In that case, our next performer is my friend, a wonderful poet, artist, musician, Adam Gottlieb.
Hey y'all, thank you. Man, what an event, y'all. Great to be here and just feeling really inspired. Yeah. I wanna share one song and one spoken word if there's time. And I really appreciated the content of Alan's presentation in the middle of this. It kind of helped me decide what pieces to do. This is a song I wrote back in 2013, maybe. It's called On the Brink. I was 13 in 2003 when the US bombed Iraq. It was not the first time or the last we aimed our missile stock that way. And even then I understood but couldn't fathom why. When powerful men want some oil, a million people die. In North Dakota, where the Sioux have suffered centuries, another form of genocide is pumping oil presently. But warriors will move to stop these pipelines in their tracks. Native folks are idle no more, they'll die fighting back. Oh, there is blood in our banks, in our lights, in our cars. Here we are on the brink of extinction, like the dinosaurs underground in the oil that we burn, in our lights, in our cars. Here headed straight for our death, unless imagine Lady Justice with her blindfold and her scales. On one side she's got life on earth, trees, mountains, oceans, mice and whales. On the other side she's got big oil for you, a wealthy man. But what will your kids inherit if it's all a desert? Oh, there is blood in our banks, in our lights, in our cars. Here we are on the brink of extinction, like the dinosaurs underground in the oil that we burn, in our lights, in our cars, headed straight for our death, unless the war machines are oiled up for Armageddon 3. The petrodollar's falling as a global form of currency. And here we are, the little folks with nothing left to lose. We'll fight for war or fight for peace. Which one will you choose? Oh, there is blood in our banks, in our lights, in our cars. Here we are on the brink of extinction, but not like the dinosaurs Whew. All
Yeah,
right.
thank you, Adam.
Thank you. How we doing on
Powerful as
time?
always. Yeah.
We have time for a poem, or
We got
Oh
2
yeah, we
minutes
do.
left.
We do. We got time.
Yeah. Okay. I'll just jump
Yeah.
right in then. I'll put one thing in the chat, which is a plug for an event in Chicago and hybrid, so you can attend wherever you are. 2 weeks from today. It's like a song gathering for liberation that SEDEC Chicago is hosting. I'll be leading it with the other co-cantorial soloist. SEDEC Chicago is my anti-Zionist synagogue here in Chicago and around the world. Now that we're in this post world that we're in. All right. Check. We need peace. My people at war, but they don't even know it, so the poets got some more to say. This is a propaganda battle coming for your brain, cause that's the war terrain. We about to storm it rain, cause the perfect slavery's chainless. The perfect traitor is blameless. The perfect racist ain't hatred, it's mind enslavement. The matrix oppression came with and stays in the USA's DNA. We got to name it to change it, but corporations are faceless. We gotta wake up the nation. Mental emancipation, collective po-education, infectious loving vibration. We need a visualization of life with no exploitation. Human communication, talking real reparations. We need peace. What's that? That's a lot to ask. When every piece of our society's a robbery act and violence is the normal way of life, a common fact, and then on top of that, our nature's not intact, we need peace. What's peace? Just a lack of war? What's that even mean when we know what that's actually for is just to capture more, get a high capital score so the elite keep getting richer while they tax the poor? Hey, ain't that the war? Cause that's the bigger violence. And isn't the one biggest war the bigger silence while they spout their lies and keep us all reliant? They keep closing public schools. That's more massive firings. That's war. And war is when there's folks on the street in every block holding a cup because they got nothing to eat. When there are women, children lying, dying, trying to sleep, and people keep getting beat, locked up, and killed by police. We need peace. I mean, we need a whole new game where everybody gets to eat and gets a home to stay in. And we can finally distribute water, clothes, education, healthcare, make these basic needs society's basis. That's peace. Talking revolution now, because that seems to be the one solution. How else are we gonna feed the people who computers ousted from their food and housing? Are we human now? We want peace. That means we need justice too. That means democracy for everyone, not just a few, so we can turn our selfish culture into something new. I wonder, could you trust in me if I could trust in you? Because that's peace. And that's the overwhelming need, not just a lack of war, actually a mental leap, finally becoming that which we were meant to be. Talking death and rebirth, you best believe we want peace. Yeah, we need peace. Yeah, we want peace. Yeah, we need peace. Yeah, we seek peace. Yeah, we breathe peace. Yeah, we are peace. Peace. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Adam. We definitely need peace. That's what we're all here for today. So I think that that's pretty much our desire for the world. Greg, are you still here with us? Have you come back yet?
Yes, I am.
Oh, there you are. Yeah, whenever you're ready.
You. Thank you, everybody. Refugee. Woman, who did you refuse that made you refugee? Rebel lust for your youngest daughter made you do what any mother might do. You offered yourself instead. Then, aware that you could no longer protect your nest, you quickly gathered your eggs and left. Woman, what did you refuse to do that made you refugee? The soldiers simply said, comply or you'll end up dead. Try to escape and we'll behead without compassion or impunity. You knew you had one choice left. Run for your lives and head due west. Woman, who did you choose to trust that left you in the dust, just another refugee? Soldiers following orders gave you a head start to the border, but made sure you had very little to eat, no shade from the heat, and barely a drop of water. Woman, how much did you lose when you were refugee? Lucky to buy a ride, overcrowded desperation, unlucky 125. Sailing towards freedom, but destined to capsize. Just a few were rescued. Her youngest daughter died. Woman, do you have any clue of what you need to do to no longer be refugee? Where do you run when you need to flee? Where do you go when you need to be free? Where do you escape to find the peaceful place that evades the refugee? Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Greg. And when I introduced you, I forgot to mention you are Greg Pond. I'd left off your last name. So yeah, that was Greg Pond, everyone. And thank you for sharing with us, Greg. In the chat, Jesus said she loved your voice. And I was thinking, you know, you should record like hypnosis sessions or something. Great to listen to. Thank you.
Mhm. All right, so I guess Lou Rosenbaum is going to close out, and then we're going to hear one more beautiful performance. So I know it's the end. This has been so nourishing and amazing. Just heart to all of you. Go ahead, Lou. Leave your mute, comrade.
There we go. There we go. I want to say, first of all, that, you know, obviously this has been an amazing, amazing performance all through with everybody's work. There's something that everybody has said that is so, reaches the heart so deeply. So I just want to thank everybody for attending and participating at a time when the outbreak of war threatens the existence of humanity. Especially to the performers who shared their work, and a special thank you. I want to thank the marvelous tech team that we have behind the scenes, keeping us on course today and for preparing for the event. I'm sure you all recognize that Dr. Poet Jesu Estrada was the linchpin in this whole process, but also there is the tremendous backup team of Eric and Ran and Mary Beth and Alan that we want to call out and say hi to. This program was brought to you by the Chicago Digital Media Collective of the League of Revolutionaries for New America. The League is a national organization of people from all walks of life, and that includes artists, poets, and musicians. From its inception, this organization has recognized that there can't be revolution without revolutionary culture. And we have been exploring what that means in our time when people are responding to the new conditions of growing polarity of wealth and poverty, polarity of power and powerlessness. Nelson Algren wrote, and this is a quote from his City on the Make, literature is made upon any occasion that a challenge is put to the legal apparatus by a conscience in touch with humanity. We, the League, along with many revolutionaries, are a conscience in touch with humanity. And we pose a challenge to the legal apparatus that passes a war budget of $1 trillion every year. We do that in our unions, throughout the George Floyd rebellion, in our opposition to caging children at our borders, and in fighting to end homelessness and endorsing the campaign most immediately, for example, to pass an ordinance in Chicago to take the vaccine to the people. Whether you're an artist or not, we encourage you to read our bi-monthly paper, The Rally Comrades, and check out our online publications on our website, learna.org. I put in the chat a number of ways for you to get in touch with us, including events that are coming up. We're active online in a variety of formats, and we encourage you to engage with us there. If you'd like to find out more about joining Learna, contact us in Chicago through our Facebook page or nationally through learna.org, our website. We want to continue to exchange information about how we continue to pose that challenge to the legal apparatus as we envision what a new society could be like. I want to also mention that in the chat, and you'll all be getting a copy of the chat afterwards, but in the chat you will find that Mark from Vagabond Books invited the poets to submit work to Vagabond, and also the People's Tribune, a regular, a monthly newspaper, which also has an online expression, invited people to submit your poetry to the People's Tribune. So I hope you'll come back again, and thank you again for being part of this wonderful program.
Hey Lou, so there were a couple of poets that wanted to read, and I didn't realize they were part of the lineup. Carlos and Angel Martinez.
Yes, here we are.
Yes. Okay, hold on.
No?
Go for it.
Okay, all right. My name is Angel Martinez. This is If War is the Answer, What Was the Question? Can't say democracy is dying when it was always a crime. Look at Indian reservations, white supremacists enforced, Hitler endorsed. If there are neo-Nazis, were there not there proto-Nazis before? When people died in Puerto Rico in Huracán Maria, were Puerto Rican flags flown by people who know nothing of the islands? Or were those paper towels flying over there? This wicked system always cries, save the children, and lets them die in the streets and prisons by bullets, neglects, and lies. Death by armed thugs, as unarmed poor flee in terror. This is every day in occupied Great Turtle Island. Too many rage for war and cannot say Donetsk and Lugansk by name. Find it on a map, forget that, it's Vietnam again. If war is the answer, what was the question? Manifest destiny is a journey in fear of a U-turn. Keep on with our roadblocks of our rage.
My name is Carlos Raul Dufal. I'm a poet for many years and have been a peace activist all my life since the age of 17, marching during the Vietnam War. What is old is new again, and soon spring will be along the way, like a page of history since its beginning. Broken engine treaties, the museum of body parts, the ghost dance that haunted the corporate profiteers and missionaries, Guatemala, Mexico, Cuba, Puerto Rico, Guam, Filipinos, Santo Domingo, and Nicaragua, and slavery that cultivated the foundation of why America is the most wealthiest country in the world. I remember when I was in high school, and a so-called teacher in his history class, Mr. KKK, and his unrealistic Cold War rhetoric of white supremacy, capitalist love story. People were struggling and organizing to register to vote for a democratic way, for human rights, but we were committed to nonviolence, and many were martyred. And during my student years, Vietnam War was raging over America. People were marching to bring the troops home now, peace now. And hey, LBJ, how many children did you kill today? And people, it was not enough. for people to die for peace. Kent State University, Jackson State College, and Greensboro College. When some members, friends of mine, we went to see and hear and listen to Dr. Martin Luther King on Sunday, April the 4th, 1967, 55 years ago at the Riverside Church. A time to break our silence. And today we could not ignore the presence of war. Vietnam, that America is totally poisoned, and we must read Vietnam. The war is an enemy to the poor, and we call to speak for the weak, for the voiceless, for the victims of the nation, a revolutionary of value. Within a month, in a staff meeting, the Poor People's Campaign was born with an economical Bill of Rights. When Dr. Martin Luther King went to Memphis to show solidarity with the sanitation workers, the enemies of humanity brutally murdered him, and the people rebelled. The military-industrial complex, it was reaping billions and billions of dollars from the war, not for poor. On that Sunday, on Mother's Day, on May the 12th of 1968, Coretta King Scott King and the National Welfare Rights Organization marched down that half-torn city of Washington, D.C. to start the Poor People's Campaign of 5,000 women to demand the rights and open up Resurrection City, a city of hope for the richest of the earth. Before Occupy Wall Street, we were indigenous, we were Black, we were Puerto Rican, we were Chicano, and poor whites. The Poor People's Army, we were marching for our lives, to end hunger, for housing, for jobs, for training, for guaranteed income, and to end the war, and to break relations with South Africa, and end the apartheid USA in the caste system, and peace. Resurrection City was our home. No police, no rent, no brutality. We called each other brothers and sisters, no landlords, no jails. It didn't matter where you came from. But when the climate of fear, counterintelligence, FBI, Metropolitan Police, DC, National Guards, and the 20,000 army troops that were waiting for us to rebel, tear gas, bulldozer, burning down Resurrection City, and a massive arrest of 300 people, and kicked each and every one of us. Yeah, they sent me home, but my parents were happy. The struggle continues for the people, for housing, to end hunger, for justice, for education, for democracy, and first, most of all, for peace and not war. The history, Iraq, Afghanistan, Filipino, Puerto Rico, Yemen, and the name of the holy prophet of corporate American empire. The rising of millions of homeless people sleeping in the street, millions who have died from the plague, but billions and billions of dollars to the weeping Ukraine, whose rulers are Nazis and fascists and that kill people. But they never say that because the mass media must teach the people in America, because a lot of them are blind, that they're bad. But of course not. They don't worry and cry for the people in Donetsk who have, they close it?
No, it's all right.
Wait,
Go ahead.
they don't cry for the people in Donetsk who have been dying for years, tens and tens of thousands of them. But let's break the lies of the warmongers and the Cold War rhetoric and solidarity with the people, and not for war, but just for peace now, peace now, peace now. Thank you.
That was powerful. Loved it. Love both of your pieces. Thank you. Thank you, comrades.
Thank you. Thank you.
So we're going to end with probably one of my favorite performances. Scott Bird doing a piece from Victor Jara in reading just a fantastic poem that I think you will all enjoy. So this is Scott Bird, our comrade from California.
Love, there is no revolution. Without poetry, there is no love. As Rilke said, Gesang ist Dasein, song is being. Those are the words of Jack Hirschman. I'd like to read my own translation of a Victor Jara song, and my poem flows into this Victor Jara piece called Manifiesto. Here's the translation. I do not sing just to sing, nor to have a good voice. I sing because the guitar has sense and reason. It has the heart of the earth and wings of a little dove. It's like sacred water, holy with glories and sorrows. Here is where my song is embedded, like the violet said, working guitar with an air of spring. It is not a guitar of riches, nor does it resemble anything. My song is a scaffolding built to reach the stars. The song has sense when it throbs in your veins. I know I will die singing the truest of truths. Not fleeting flattery nor foreign fame, but the song of the lark to the bottom of the earth, there where all are gathered, where everything begins. The song has been brave, and there will always, always be a new song. I watched the lead belly of the mountain grow bare of ice caps and snow. I watched the river flow slow down to a trickle. I watched the lumber poor carpenter falter in the streets and barter his last dime for a nickel. I watched the young girl learn to paint before she learned to write, and she taught me how to see the fish in the trees. I watched the Dene grandmother dig a finger's well in the earth to quench the thirst of her dying flock of sheep. And I watched her ladle 1 cup of mineral to slake her own throat caked in red dirt. And I watched the mother redwood tell her children to sweat in their red coats. And I watched the spider woven wool of the nape of fire sweep over the forest floor. I watched the baby take its first steps and dance in the threshold of the open door. I watched the changing leaves of autumn give way to a dry, dry cold. I watched the old man roll his last cigarette and dump his tobacco fold. I watched the branch divide, and I watched the people hide. The halls of justice flooded to the pillars by an unjust tide. I watched the old world leave behind the earth for a colony built on Mars, and I watched them streak across the sky, and I heard the screaming stars. I watched the wicked, wicked thing, and I stood and watched it in its throes. I watched, though the brain trembles, the broken-hearted know. I watched as a child watches the first of the falling snow, and watches, waiting. I think I'll no longer watch and wait. I think I'll no longer think. From now on, I think I'll just sing. Yo no canto por cantar, ni por tener buena voz. Canto porque la guitarra tiene sentido y razón. Tiene corazón de tierra y alas de palomita. Es como el agua bendita, santigua glorias y penas. Aquí se encajó mi canto, como dijera Violeta. Guitarra trabajadora, un olor de primavera. Que no es guitarra de ricos, ni cosa que se parezca. Mi canto es de los andamillos por alcanzar las estrellas. Que el canto tiene sentido cuando palpitan las venas del que morirá cantando las verdades verdaderas. No las lisonjas fugaces ni las famas extranjeras, sino el canto de una alondra hasta el fondo de la tierra. Ahí donde llega todo y donde todo comienza. Cuando que has sido valiente, siempre será canción nueva. Siempre será canción nueva. Siempre será canción nueva.
All right, that concludes our program. Thank you for staying the duration of the time. We're just a little bit over and we look forward to seeing you in the future. Let's all unmute and let's give each other some love because this was amazing. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bravo, everybody. Bravo.
Bravo, bravo, bravo. That was amazing. Thank you all.
Thank you for being here, everybody.
Don't you know, they're talking about a revolution. It sounds like a whisper. Don't you know, they're talking about a revolution. It sounds like a whisper. Poor people gonna rise up and get their share. Poor people gonna rise up and take what's theirs. Are starting to turn, talking about a revolution. Yes, finally the tables are starting to turn, talking about a revolution. Oh no, talking about a revolution. Oh no, talking about a revolution.